echt redelijk dicht staan voor dat hij zo. En dat is hierindien voor de...
Voor boven, oké. En die werkt wel goed?
Die werkt wel heel goed.
Oké, goed.
Dus dat is die zo'n beetje... ik zit daar...
Is dat uw?
Ja.
Ja.
Dus dat is wel water afgeschoten.
Ik heb mijn eigen fles mee.
Ik heb zelf... ik zit daar, ik heb bordjes van 10 en 5
Ja,
minuten.
oké.
Voor het einde van de...
Ja. Een half uur gaat lastig. Oh ja, ik ga mijn best.
Liever dat ik niet doe, is het goed.
Het is beter om te doen en dan zien we misschien... Oké. Het is het einde van een dag. So it's the end of the day, so I imagine that probably I should just get started. And then if anybody still comes, they'll just join us later. So, it's 5 o'clock. It's Friday. Thank you very much for being in my session. I will try to impart some of my hard-won experience to you, so that I don't know who here owns a consultancy. Some, a few. Okay, so I think if you're like a freelancer, or maybe if you're working in a consultancy, I hope that some of the session will help you. Maybe you can take it to your boss, or stuff like that. So my session is differentiate or die. It's a little bit dramatic. And basically, what I'm going to be talking about is how to stop being a YADS. Yet another Drupal shop. Who here works in yet another Drupal shop? Okay. I'm sure nobody would actually say that. But what I mean with that is, like the way that most Drupal companies are very similar, and we're all kind of doing the same. We're kind of like specialized in Drupal, and that's what differentiates us. But then beyond that, most Drupal companies they're not really differentiating too much. And this presentation is about why I think that is that way, and why I think that's a bad idea or a problem, and then what you could be doing about it to get a better position in the markets, and then to be more profitable and actually help Drupal and the community. So, but a little bit of backgrounds to why am I doing this session, and why do I care about this? For forever, really. It's now 10 years that I run a Drupal company, and ever since the beginning, I've been thinking about how can we be something different? How can we? Because I knew this stuff about differentiation, and I'm sure everybody knows this, but I've always been thinking how can we differentiate ourselves and do something truly different, so that we don't have to compete necessarily. And because if everybody does the same, then basically you're just competing on price. One of the things that we've started working around was documentation. And last year, I think already at this Drupal camp, the Belgian Drupal camp last year, I think I already mentioned that we started working on developer portals. I don't know if anybody knows what is a developer portal. You know? What is a developer portal? It's a website where you share documentation about APIs. It's this very obscure thing. It's kind of big if you're a company that runs an API program, but it's this tiny market niche, really. It only makes sense if you work globally on it. So then for us, that was the culmination of 5 years of working in documentation. And documentation is not exactly the thing that gets everybody excited most of the time. But for some weird reason, we got excited about it, and we specialized in it. And then we've basically used that as a driving force to differentiate our business. Now, all of this is not important. The important thing is the fact about differentiation, that it's important to differentiate. actually hope nobody of you is excited about documentation. It would be better for us. It would be better for you. It would be better if you're excited about other stuff and you differentiate yourself with another, into another sector. But I think it would be good for Drupal if we got more of that. Now, I want to take you a little bit back in time. In 2010, Robert Douglas did this talk, The Business of Drupal. And probably you don't know about this talk, but you will know about this thing. This was, I don't know if this was a talk that broke the idea of the App Store concept, but it was a really good summary of it. And he had been touring Europe with this talk. So, but he talked about the Drupal App Store. And it was very controversial because most of the developers said, like, you know, why would we not get a piece of the pie? Like, if you're going to be building apps and you're going to be getting repeatable revenue from the apps that you're selling in the App Store, you know, that's not fair because we built the modules that you're using to build your apps. So there was this whole controversy. In the end, as we all know now, the App Store didn't really work. I think that there's a lot of reasons, and this is too short a time to really go into depth about why it didn't work. But I think that the App Store was not the key point of this talk or the key point of this discussion. I think there were a few other things. I think this is actually the key point. He talked about the difference between vars and ISVs. And okay, it's the end of the day, so who knows what these terms mean? Vars and ISVs? No? Okay. In traditional platform business, this is kind of a big thing. A VAR is a value-added reseller. It's a company like us, most of us. We're you know, taking some piece of software and we add some customization on top of it, and then we sell it to our customers. And in the process, we're probably a distributor of somebody else's software. In our case, because Drupal is open source, we're not paying any license fees to them. But in the past, with software that had license fees, this was kind of a big thing to help spread software. But interestingly, most of the Drupal community is basically VARs. There's a whole bunch of value-added resellers all over the place focused on their local markets. ISVs are independent software vendors. And this is this other thing, like all the hosting businesses and so on that have been, well, the few dedicated Drupal hosting businesses are ISVs. And there's a few others like DropGuard and things like that. Those are solutions, they're more productized services. And the interesting thing also you can see here is VARs are more geographical. They're about providing, like you have access to some markets and you're helping a product to get into that market. ISVs are more like, we have a product and we're trying to spread it wherever it has to go. It's like a, that's dichotomy that you have between the two. Another thing he talked about was the elephants. Now, you know, it's been a while that we talked about the elephants, but they're here, they're roaming the Drupal community. I was at an event half a year ago where somebody from EDF, you know, big electricity company, came to talk, and where he basically said that, you know, small Drupal consultancies are really interesting to introduce big companies to Drupal, but then, you know, they should just make place for the big boys and, you know, who can scale it up, because a small Drupal agency of 10, 20, 50, like 30 people, they can't really deal with us. They don't have the scale to work with us because probably we would be their only customer, and that's kind of dangerous. So, and this is, yeah. There was also an interesting point. Another one was specialization. All of these are related, as you can feel. Now, we've had some more specialization. I don't know if you know these logos. Well, commerce guys obviously you will know. But do you know the others? Who knows at least two? Okay. So these are all Drupal products. They're built on top of Drupal. And they're... a lot of them are actually open source even. So they're distributions basically. So there has been some specialization, and some of them are actually pretty successful. Like Recruiter down there in the corner, they've been at this for years, and they're actually doing quite well. They're specialized in making recruitment websites, job offering websites. It was like another really obscure niche, if you ask me, but it's a big thing, at least for one company. Bioraft is doing scientific websites. Like it's kind of like the lab book replacement if you have a scientific background. Dkan is about open data. It's like a registry of open data. Open Social is kind of a replacement for the community websites. Roomify is about hotels and stuff like that. But one thing that Robert asked was like, where are the millionaires? And I don't know. I don't think that there's really Drupal millionaires. Maybe there's a few that have quite some money now, or have built up a lot of stock. I'm thinking like in Acquia or something, and some of the other venture-backed startups. Probably they're worth a lot of money by now, but it's not like extravagant. It's nothing like extraordinary. Like there's been a few exits in the community recently, but it's nothing really super exciting. Now, I don't mean to say that we all need to be millionaires or that that's so important, but it's kind of like signifying for the market. Like we've focused on this small margin business of the possibilities. And this was actually, you could say like, well, I don't have to be a millionaire. I'm fine just having enough money to buy a house and have my kids and whatever. But actually, when Drupal 8 took so long to get out of the door, and I don't know if you've heard this, but I've heard some stories from some people that were really in trouble, that were at risk actually. And then this big push to get Drupal 8 out of the door was really important, and I'm sure it saved a few businesses. Most people that I've talked to that say like, well, it was not really a problem for us, said like, yeah, because we were doing also Symfony or something else. And so basically, this strategy of being a VAR is not the best idea, or it's kind of, it's a little bit of dangerous. And yeah, so but the key reason why I wanted to bring up this presentation is because there was this controversy, and I want to open up discussion, and Robert did this presentation because he wanted to have a discussion about app stores. And at the end of my presentation, I'll bring you another controversy that I would love to hear your feedback on. It's very similar, but it's a little bit different. So, but why should you differentiate? I don't know if you know this thing, the purple cow, Seth Godin. Marketeers, they're crazy about differentiation because differentiation allows you to be so different from others that basically you stop being competitors. If you can sufficiently differentiate yourself, nobody else can compete with you, because if a customer knows that they need to have you because you have this very specific differentiation, they'll look at the others and say, yeah, you can also do that, but it takes you a lot more time, so no, we'll go with these people. It also makes it a lot easier to get word of mouth, because if people know what you're differentiated in, they'll talk about you. They'll say like, oh, you need a developer portal? Well, talk to Pronovix because they're specialized in that. We actually don't want to do those. And stuff like that. There's also this one. Peter Thiel has this, and I think it's a little bit of a controversy, but he said competition is for losers, which is in direct conflict with what Dries said, that he wanted more competition in the Drupal community. But I think, and if you just for a moment suspend your feeling for justice and rightness and you just think a little bit about, you know, just from the pure capitalistic perspective, because we've been basically indoctrinated by society that competition is good. You know, whenever somebody has a monopoly, that's like a bad word. Monopolies are evil, right? Or at least that's the message that we're getting. Now, there's monopolies and monopolies. I'm not talking about, I'm not trying to say that it's a good thing that people get monopolies by the state or by government, and then now only this person or only this organization can provide telecom services or something. Competition is good. It's good for the consumers. But blind competition is basically a zero-sum game. Competition is, there's this pie, and we're going to share it with whoever is in this market, and we're going to compete for it. And any competition in the end devolves to a price war, basically. Or at some point, there's an unspoken understanding that the parties in the competition will stop reducing their prices because, you know, else they won't have any margins anymore and they won't be able to survive. And as long as a market is growing, like as long as the Drupal market was growing like really, really fast, and I think that the market is growing again, like with Drupal 8, and that's, you know, we're good again. But as long as the market is growing, this is not really a question, as long as there's too little supply for the demand that is there. Because then it's easy to cooperate, because, you know, why wouldn't we, all right? But as soon as the market starts kind of stagnating, it becomes a little bit different. Or as soon as the market is becoming saturated by suppliers, like loads and loads of Indian companies swamping the market with low cost prices. Like, I don't know how many emails I get every week. There are probably 3 or 4. Now it's a little bit less lately. But like, you know, $10, $15 an hour, you know the kind of offers. I'm sure plenty of you are also getting those. So, and unless you're differentiated, why would somebody choose you who are so much more expensive than this other company? And they're also experts, and they're also on Drupal.org, and they're also contributing to Drupal 8, and so on and so on. Well, not all of them, but some, and the ones that do contribute, they're not going for the low cost. But I think it's important to think about this. Because when a market starts slowing down, and that's another spider, I don't want to be too doomsaying, but as soon as the market starts slowing down, there's more competition. Who knows this diagram? It's Porter's 5 forces. It's like a basic business thing. This is one of the things they teach you when you do an MBA. But Porter's 5 forces tries to put into one diagram what your power is in the markets, like if you're in a powerful position or in a weak position. And your power position in the market depends on these 5 forces. You have the suppliers, that's in our case developers. You know, like if there's a lot of competition for developers can set their price and they can make it go up. There's the bargaining power of the customers, threat of new entrants, and the threat of substitute products like WordPress to some extent, like especially in the low end of the market, and then competition within the industry. Now, in open source, this is stronger because it's incredibly easy to enter the market. This is what we did. This is why I'm running a Drupal company, because I didn't need to make any big investments. I had €2,000 and a laptop, and I could start making websites. You know, make a company in Hungary and start making websites. That's how we got started. And so the barrier to entry is incredibly low. So that means that it's very easy for new people to come into the market and to start competing with you. There's also quite some stress on the employee side, like people start poaching your employees, or it's hard to find new people that are qualified. And the threat of the substitutes is there to some extent, a little bit less because we're all playing on the same platform, but still, these forces are pretty strong. And then the last point that I want to bring up again, if you haven't read this book yet, you need to read it. It's, I think, a very important strategy book. If we're all doing the same, the community is fragile. I lightly touched on that earlier, but if we could differentiate and have multiple verticals in which we're operating with differentiated products that share the same core, Drupal will be much stronger, and we as an industry will be better protected from radical market shifts in any of the places that we're working. So, but my pet peeve, geographical versus vertical. Now, the reason why for us this is kind of different is because we're located in Hungary. I'm a Belgian, but all my employees are in Hungary. And we didn't want to be a near sourcing company. We didn't want to work in a Hungarian market, so we've always been like a vertical, or trying to find a vertical in which we could be different. And we were not really like super powerful in the Belgian market. Like, I don't think anybody of you has ever competed against me, against my business. But most of you are probably working in companies that are active in a very specific geographic niche. To some extent defined by language barriers, to some extent defined by, okay, a big word, racism, right? Because people, like, I know that, for example, in Flanders, I know that it's hard for Dutch to work in Flanders or to get projects in Flanders. It's easier the other way around. I know that Swiss like working with Swiss. They're paying an incredible premium for that. But they just like working with locals. And so there's this, I want to work with locals thing. It's not all about racism. It's also to some extent about just having someone who can come to your office and you can see face to face and trust. But, you know, most of the companies as a result are very geographically, it's kind of like people are working in small geographical defined markets. And that's a problem, because that means that a lot of us are seeing a lot of problems the first time. Like, if you have to build your first e-commerce site, you're going to make mistakes. If you have to build your first community sites, you don't know what are the dynamics that help make a successful community site, because you haven't done any of them. You don't know what works. You can just build what the customer asks you to build. And you're going to build something custom, something that's not really, that's not providing as much value. It's like a new bespoke system. It's going to be really expensive, right? And this is what we're all doing over and over and over again. And if you compare that to an organization that's more focused, that has like done some investment in a very specific vertical, is it okay that I go over a bit? Yeah? Okay. I'll take that as a yes. So if you're specialized in a very specific product, first of all, you're able to deliver more value because you know the market better, right? You know the problems. We've seen this. We've been helping Open Social getting into a large NGO, and they're just much better at solving that problem than we are, because they've done several. They've built a community platform for Greenpeace and then a bunch of and a few other companies, and basically, because they've solved this problem a few times, they know the caveats. Taco said, like, I was in a discussion, Taco said things like, so, okay, you want to separate into separate groups, but you say that you're only going to have 300 people. Of 300 people, like, how is it, like 10% is going to be really active. So if you put them in separate groups, you're going to have 2 or 3 people active in each of these groups. It's not going to work. You don't want organic groups in your site. And stuff like that, you only know when you've done it and seen how it works and doesn't work. Because this is not about code, this is about the human side and the usage of the software. And you cannot know this until you've done a few of these projects. Another part of this is that once you've built like a distribution and you've built like processes around it and you have some reusable pieces that you can redeploy between sites, your production cost gets lower. So a lot of the value that you're providing comes from reusable code that you don't have to pay people to build again, because what you have to pay your employees for is the custom part. So when you're doing stuff from scratch, like, you know, you have Drupal core and Drupal contrib, but then on top of that, it's all custom. And that means practically that someone who's specialized can give more value at lower price. That also means that they're better positioned to compete, because others can't just easily come in and just do the same, because they have to make that investment and go through that learning process. And it's good for the customer because they get more value at a lower price. It's good for you because you get more profit. And I think this is another pet peeve, is also what I see echoing in the community, is that what I see most companies doing is serving the Drupal market. To some extent, we've done that also for a long time, instead of growing the Drupal market. So basically what people were doing was, okay, you have like people come in asking for a Drupal project. You're a Drupal specialist, so make my Drupal thing. But we're not really actively trying to enlarge the market or make it bigger, because it's this amorphous, undifferentiated thing that you can't really explain, right? This is why the Drupal brand is still not very strong. This is why people don't know Drupal, but they know WordPress. Because WordPress is a blogging engine, or it was, or it used to be. And Drupal is this whatever you want thing, and only technical people know it. So, and I think that this is a big problem. Like, this is also one of the key things. Like, like Acquia gets a lot of backwind from people because they have a really big influence on the market. But what a lot of people forget is how much Acquia has actually built the market. Like, they've yes, we had a lot of traction happening in the, out there in a lot of these verticals that are now much bigger. We already saw projects happening, but Acquia has put a giant sales machine on it and actually made that much, much bigger. And I think that few other companies have done the same. And I think that doing more of this differentiation and then going after these niches would actually help us grow Drupal, not just your business, but also Drupal itself. So, but then the last point, how can you differentiate? Because I hope that I made the case for differentiation. Now, here I've gone away from the fancier slides. Hope you won't fall asleep in the last few minutes. But I wanted to do a really quick summary. I think there's 3 steps to doing this kind of differentiation. First of all, you need to find something that you're interested in that's uncommon, that's different. The way you find that is probably by doing a bunch of projects, probably going the VAR route and then doing a bunch of projects for a bunch of different people, and then finding some place where you have traction, where you see that you're already having some success. And also where there's a sufficiently addressable market. It doesn't matter if there's a huge market, if you can't access it, it's not there. So you have to be able to address it. Now once you've had a few of these projects, what you can do next is to try to do more of them. Like to start saying to people like what we're doing, we're specialized in this thing. We're specialized in developer portals. We're specialized in e-commerce sites for, I don't know, bio products, or I don't know, like something crazy. But something very, very specific that you start telling people about it. That's such a crazy story. That's a purple cow that they'll tell their friends about it. Like, oh, you need that? Well, okay, there's these guys that are specialized in it. Another really important one is building partnerships in that specific vertical. Going a bit out of the islands. Don't keep going circles in the Drupal community, because you're not going to find those partners in the Drupal community. You need to go to other events, to other places where you can find those partners that have already that access to that market. And most important, stay alive, which means don't stay away from the bat cave. What I mean with that is, don't say like, oh yeah, we're going to build this product and we're going to go away for a year and spend all our money and then put it on the market and it's going to be grand. And then nobody cares because you didn't really work on your marketing, you don't really know how to bring it to markets, and that's the best way to die. So you need to be very careful with that. You need to build some product, we've done it also, but it's a little bit, it's a bit dangerous. Last one. So once you start having repeating business in that specific area, you can start building assets. And assets don't have to be code. Assets might be a questionnaire about the features that your customer wants that has very specific information about how those features work in this specific vertical. It might be market knowledge, or it might be references, projects that you've done in the same area. It could be infrastructure, it could be partnerships, your network, brand recognition. And then the last part, intellectual property. And this is the controversy that I want to talk about, or that I would like to hear feedback about. Because one thing that I've been thinking a lot about, and I'm still not out of it, and we haven't actually done it yet, but I know that some companies are doing it, is basically, like, have you ever wondered why features doesn't work? Because it doesn't work on Drupal.org, not really. We have the distributions, those work, but why don't we have more features for, I don't know, galleries really picking up? And I think there's several reasons. I think one of them is that it's really hard to use somebody else's feature because they have certain understandings and ideas about how this thing works in the way that they work with their customers. But I think also to some extent I've seen proposals where companies pretty reputable in the community are proposing features that they've developed in-house and that they haven't contributed to the community. I've seen that. And I know that there are some companies that are doing this, that are actually have a business model around making a sort of in-house distribution and not sharing it with the community. Now, I don't advocate that. I think that's bad. I think we should have open distributions and open platforms, and that it actually probably still makes business sense to do so. But I am starting to think that maybe some of the features that we built that are highly specialized and very specific, that we might not put those on Drupal.org. And I would love to get feedback from you and hear what you think about that. I think actually that this way we might be able to contribute more upstream to the community because we would have higher profitability and be able to contribute to Contrib and to Core. So this is this weird question again. It's the same question as with the App Store. It's exactly the same question. How much, should some downstream organization be able to say, this is my intellectual property, even if you can just copy it and publish it and make it open source, because Drupal is open source. Even if you can do that, I'm going to choose not to make it too easy. And I'm not going to publicly support it. Because back in the days of OpenHM, we had OpenHM features that we built and we contributed, and we were on the bandwagon. And that was a huge money sink, and it never brought anything really. We had one customer that ended up working with us, but there's just one. And there was a lot of work that we did to build those features. So it's like putting features out there. This is also, I think, why OpenHM didn't really work all that well. It was like a finished product, and there was not too much customization that needed to be done. And people were still asking for a lot of support, even though that they were not paying for it. So I think that there's somewhere a new balance that needs to be made there. I don't know where it lays exactly. I would love to get feedback. Come and see me tonight, come and see me tomorrow. If you know about people that are keeping certain features in-house and not contributing it consciously, that are still community players, right? That are still contributing to some of the upstream work and that are still really active in the community, I would love to hear about that. And that's the end of my session. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or immediate comments? I'll bring it back to, keep it here. That's a tough one for the end of the day, right? How do you feel about this? Do you think it's okay to keep features separate? Think so? Yeah.
The thing is that you raise an interesting question.
Uh-huh.
So please allow us the time to think.
Okay, I'll leave you time to think about it.
So what I'm definitely gonna think about it.
Yeah.
It is a tough one to want to have like direct feedback. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you presented well, so I don't really have any clarification questions. So.
Yeah. Okay. Flourish? Yeah.
We actually already do this
Yeah.
in the form of the quirks of the company that we adapt to.
Yeah.
It cannot be sanitized to put back on Drupal.org because the company, their workflow is crazy.
Yeah.
So that application to their workflow has sell to them as their intellectual property.
Yeah. Yeah. I think.
With a ribbon.
I think that some of this is exactly that it's just so hard to share it that it just doesn't make sense to share it. The thing is that once you start actively doing that, like it gets kind of ewy, right? It's like you're not sharing your code and yeah, right?
Yeah, I think we have to round up.
Yeah, okay. So come and see me. We'd love to get more feedback. Thank you.
So just one more thing, the social event, maybe you already heard about it.